I never expected to find metal spikes in Nana Rosa's driveway, but when the HOA started targeting her quaint sky blue cottage, and I discovered her secret life as a senior prosecutor specializing in real estate fraud, I realized this wasn't just harassment. It was revenge. It was a calculated act of retribution for the case she was meticulously building against them. What would these corrupt officials do when they discovered their intended target was actually the one investigating them? A shiver of apprehension ran down my spine. I pulled into Nana Rosa's driveway, my little car loaded with my suitcase and a box of her favorite glazed donuts. The blue cottage, with its crisp, white trim, sat nestled amongst the tall pine trees, looking precisely as it had during all my cherished childhood summers, except for one glaring detail: a bright orange paper, flapping ominously in the breeze, stuck to her front door like an ugly warning sign. My stomach plummeted as I grabbed the paper. Violation notice, unapproved exterior, paint color, action required within 72 hours. This didn't make any sense. Nana's cottage had been this same shade of serene sky blue for as long as I could remember. "Welcome to Pinerest Village," a sickly sweet voice called from next door. A woman with perfectly highlighted blonde hair, seemingly sculpted from a magazine, stood at the property line, arms crossed over her designer blouse. "I'm Olivia, HOA Community Standards Committee Chair." I forced a polite smile, my unease growing. "Hi, I'm Sarah, Nana Rosa's granddaughter. I'm house-sitting while she recovers from surgery." Olivia's smile didn't reach her eyes, which remained cold and calculating. "Such a shame about Eleanor. We've been neighbors for what, 5 years now? The rules clearly state all exterior paint colors must be approved by the committee." She glanced at the cottage with obvious, undisguised disapproval. That blue was grandfathered in, but once a property needs repainting, it must conform to our approved palette. Mostly earth tones, you understand. It's for the aesthetic harmony of the community. I looked back at the cottage, my confusion mounting. The paint wasn't peeling or faded. It looked vibrant and fresh. "It looks freshly painted to me," I pointed out, trying to keep my voice level. "Our inspector noted significant fading on the west-facing wall," Olivia stated, the smug certainty in her voice making my skin crawl. "The violation stands. 72 hours, or the fines begin, $100 per day." As Olivia walked away, radiating an air of self-importance, I noticed her husband, Michael, watching from their porch. He quickly disappeared inside when our eyes met. A fleeting moment of guilt, perhaps? Inside Nana Rosa's cottage, everything felt warmly familiar. The handmade quilts, the bookshelf overflowing with mystery novels, the faint, comforting scent of cinnamon. I called her immediately at the rehab center. "Sarah, sweetie, I'm so glad you made it." Nana Rosa's voice, though tired, still held its characteristic strength. When I told her about the violation notice, she sighed heavily, a sound filled with weary frustration. "That's the third notice this month. First, it was my roses growing too close to the sidewalk, a ridiculous claim. Then my mailbox was deemed non-standard, despite being the original one from when I bought this place." "But you've owned this cottage for decades," I exclaimed, my confusion turning to anger. "How can they suddenly enforce these rules now?" "That's what happens when developers take over the HOA board," Nana Rose explained, her voice hardening with resentment. "Aiden became president 6 months ago. He's a lawyer for Pinnacle Development Group. They've been aggressively buying up properties all over Pinerest, tearing down the older, charming homes and building those giant, sterile, modern boxes that sell for triple the price." I glanced out the window at Olivia's house, a massive, grey and white structure that utterly dwarfed Nana Rosa's cottage, a testament to Pinnacle's encroaching influence. "Let me guess," I said, my voice laced with sarcasm. "Michael is connected to Pinnacle." "Michael is the CEO," Nana Rose confirmed, her voice grim. "They've been after my lot because it's on the corner, with that beautiful creek view. It's the perfect spot for their biggest, most ostentatious model home." A chill ran through me, despite the warm June air. This was more than just petty neighborhood squabbles. "I'll handle this, Nana," I said, my voice filled with determination. "You just focus on getting better." After hanging up, I decided to inspect the property myself, my senses on high alert. In the backyard, I noticed several of Nana Rose's prized rose bushes had been brutally cut back, not pruned carefully, as she would have done, but hacked at crudely, a clear act of vandalism. A wave of anger washed over me. Then, as I walked around to check the supposedly faded west-facing wall, which looked perfectly fine, my foot caught on something in the gravel driveway. I bent down, and my blood ran cold. Partially buried in the gravel were metal spikes, not just one, but several, positioned precisely where car tires would roll. I carefully collected the spikes using a garden glove I found in Nana Rose's shed. These weren't just random litter, they were caltrops, designed specifically to puncture tires. Someone had deliberately placed them in my grandmother's driveway. This was escalating quickly. That night, sleep evaded me. I kept replaying the events, the violation notices, the butchered roses, and those terrifying metal spikes. This wasn't random harassment or strict rule enforcement. This felt coordinated, deliberate, a calculated campaign to make Nana Rose so miserable she'd be forced to sell her beloved cottage. I spent hours researching Pinarest Village HOA regulations online. The rulebook was a daunting tome, over 200 pages long, but nowhere did it specifically list approved paint colors or mention that grandfathered properties would need to conform to new standards. In fact, Section 12.4 specifically protected historic properties from retroactive standard changes, and Nana Rose's cottage, built in 1932, definitely qualified. My suspicions solidified. This was a blatant abuse of power. Around midnight, headlights swept across the living room wall as a car crept slowly past the cottage. I peeked through the curtains, my heart pounding, to see a black SUV moving with its lights dimmed, stopping briefly in front of Nana's house before continuing down the street. I grabbed my phone and took several photos as the vehicle turned around at the end of the cul-de-sac and drove past again. The license plate was partially visible, enough to confirm my worst fears when I made out PNCL1 on the vanity plate. Pinnacle. What were they doing? Watching the house at midnight? The violation notice suddenly felt like the smallest of my worries. Morning brought another unwelcome surprise. The cottage's mailbox had been smashed overnight, bent at an odd, unnatural angle, as if hit by something heavy. Inside was another orange notice, this one claiming improper yard maintenance, with a new, even shorter 48-hour deadline. I photographed everything meticulously before straightening the mailbox as best I could. This was getting utterly ridiculous, a clear escalation of their tactics. As I headed back inside, Olivia appeared in her front yard, ostentatiously watering plants, while pointedly watching me. "Terrible about that mailbox," she called out, her voice dripping with false sympathy. "The teenagers around here can be so destructive. You really should replace it with one of the approved models. I have a catalog if you need it." I forced myself to remain calm, my anger simmering beneath the surface. "Thanks, but I'll just repair this one. It's an original feature of the property." Olivia's smile tightened, a flicker of annoyance in her eyes. "Well, damaged mailboxes are against regulations. The committee will have to issue another violation if it's not replaced properly." That was the last straw. "I'll be sure to bring all these violations to the next HOA meeting," I said, my voice trembling with barely suppressed rage. "When is that, by the way?" Something flickered in Olivia's eyes. Worry, perhaps? A hint of fear? Not for 3 weeks, but Aiden can process emergency matters any time. In fact, I'm meeting with him this afternoon. If you'd like me to mention your situation, I'll handle it myself, I replied sharply, turning toward the cottage. As I walked away, I heard Olivia on her phone, her voice hushed but urgent. She's not leaving. No, I don't think she knows anything. We might need to accelerate the timeline. Inside, I paced the small living room, trying to make sense of everything. Why was the HOA so aggressively targeting my grandmother? What did Olivia mean by accelerate the timeline? And most importantly, who had placed those tire spikes in the driveway? This was a conspiracy, and I was determined to unravel it. I decided I needed to meet this Aiden character face to face. According to the HOA website, the office was open today from 1 to 4 p.m. in the community center. I had questions that desperately needed answers, and a growing, chilling suspicion that something very, very wrong was happening in Pinarest Village. The Pinarest Village Community Center gleamed with fresh paint and expensive landscaping, a stark, almost mocking contrast to the aggressive enforcement being aimed at Nana Rosa's modest cottage. I pushed through the glass doors, clutching a folder containing the violation notices, photos of the tire spikes, and printouts of the HOA regulations I'd painstakingly studied overnight. A receptionist with a plastic smile directed me down a hallway to the HOA office. Through the partially open door, I could hear Olivia's voice, high and insistent. We need to move quickly on the Curtis property. My sources say she's been asking questions at the county records office. I froze outside the door, straining to hear more, my heart pounding in my chest. Patience, Olivia, a man's voice replied, smooth and confident. The assessment increase goes into effect next week. Between that and the violations, she'll be financially underwater by month's end. But what if Olivia stopped suddenly as I pushed the door open? Two faces turned toward me with identical expressions of surprise, quickly masked by practiced professional smiles. Olivia recovered first, standing up from her chair across from a large, imposing mahogany desk. Behind it sat a middle-aged man in an expensive golf shirt, his tan face creased with practiced charm. "Sarah, what a coincidence," Olivia trilled, her voice overly bright. "I was just discussing your grandmother's situation with our HOA president, Aiden." Aiden stood and extended his hand, a practiced gesture. "A pleasure to meet Eleanor's grandchild. We're all so concerned about her property falling into disrepair while she's away." His handshake was firm, his smile rehearsed, utterly insincere. I noticed a framed photo on his desk. Aiden shaking hands with Michael in front of a banner reading Pinnacle Development Group, building tomorrow's Pinarest today. The connection was undeniable. "Funny you should mention disrepair back there," I said, pulling out the tire spikes I'd collected. I placed them carefully on his polished desk, the metallic clink echoing in the silent room. "I found these deliberately placed in my grandmother's driveway yesterday." Aiden's smile didn't waver, but his eyes hardened, a flicker of cold calculation in their depths. "That's concerning, but vandalism is a police matter, not an HOA issue." "I've already filed a police report," I lied smoothly, my pulse racing. "They're checking nearby security cameras. I thought you should know, since it happened right after the first violation notice appeared." Olivia's face paled slightly. "Are you implying something?" I opened my folder and laid out the violation notices, one by one. "I'm implying that these notices cite rules that don't actually exist in your published regulations. Section 12.4 specifically exempts historic properties, like my grandmother's cottage, from retroactive standards changes." Aiden's professional demeanor flickered, just for a moment. a crack in his carefully constructed facade. The board recently voted to remove those exemptions, he said dismissively, without notifying homeowners. That violates state law regarding HOA governance, I countered, thanking my lucky stars for the hours I'd spent researching last night. The notifications are being processed, Aidan said dismissively. Now, if there's nothing else, Olivia and I have business to discuss. Actually, there is something else, I said, pulling out one more document. A property map of Pinterest Village with Nana Rose's corner lot highlighted. I'm curious why Pinnacle Development submitted building plans for my grandmother's property 3 months ago, when she has never expressed any interest in selling. The silence in the room was deafening, thick with tension. Aidan's mask slipped completely for a fleeting moment, revealing the cold, ruthless calculation in his eyes. Those plans were speculative, he finally said, his voice strained. Pinnacle often prepares concepts for various properties to streamline development if owners decide to sell. Interesting approach, I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm, especially combined with targeted harassment that might pressure those same owners to sell. Olivia stood abruptly, her face flushed with anger. That's an outrageous accusation. The HOA simply enforces community standards equally for everyone. Really? I challenged. Then you won't mind if I request records of all violations issued in the past 6 months. Public records laws apply to HOAs in this state. Aidan's jaw tightened, a muscle pulsing visibly in his temple. Submit your request in writing. We'll respond within the legally required 30 days. I already did, I said, pulling out a certified mail receipt. Sent it yesterday to both the HOA office and the State Housing Authority. They seemed very interested in a potential pattern of targeting. This was another bluff, but watching their reactions told me everything I needed to know. Olivia's face flushed a deeper shade of red, while Aidan maintained his cool facade, though a vein pulsed visibly in his temple. We're done here, Aidan said firmly. If you have concerns, bring them to the next board meeting like everyone else. As I turned to leave, Aidan added, his voice laced with a thinly veiled threat. By the way, the board approved a special assessment for corner properties last month. Your grandmother will be receiving notice of a $300 monthly increase starting next week for infrastructure improvements. The message was clear. Back off, or things will get much worse. I kept my expression neutral, despite the anger boiling inside me. I'll make sure she gets the notice, I said, my voice steady. And I'll make sure the housing authority gets a copy too. Outside, in the parking lot, I leaned against my car, my hands shaking slightly from the confrontation. This was bigger than harassment. It was organized, systematic pressure to force people from their homes. It was a calculated land grab, disguised under the guise of community standards. As I looked back at the community center, I spotted Olivia watching me through the window, her phone pressed to her ear. I needed allies, and I needed information. According to Nana Rose, she had lived in Pinterest Village for 30 years. She must have friends here, people who might know what was happening or who had experienced similar pressure. As I pulled out of the parking lot, a silver sedan began following me, keeping a consistent distance. I turned down several random streets, and the car stayed with me. Only when I headed toward the police station did it finally peel away, a clear indication of their surveillance. My phone rang, an unknown number. I answered cautiously. Is this Eleanor Curtis's grandchild? A woman's voice asked, quiet and nervous. Yes, this is Sarah. Who's calling? My name is Maya. I live across the street from your grandmother. Her voice lowered further. Don't go back to the cottage right now. They're watching it. Meet me at the Riverside Cafe in 20 minutes. I have information about what's happening to Eleanor and the others. Others? I asked, my concern deepening, a knot forming in my stomach. Your grandmother isn't the first they've targeted, Maya replied, her voice heavy with a mixture of fear and determination. But she might be the one who finally stops them if you help her. 20 minutes, come alone. The line went dead. I sat in my idling car, wondering if this was a trap or a genuine offer of help. Either way, I needed to know more. As I turned toward downtown and the Riverside Cafe, one question kept circling in my mind. What did Maya mean about Nana Rose being the one who could finally stop them? What exactly did my cookie-baking, mystery novel-reading grandmother know that made her so important in all of this? Glass crunched under my feet as I swept up the shattered remnants of a flower pot, thrown through Nana Rose's window. The note wrapped around the rock was chillingly clear. Sell now, or worse will come. My hands shook with a mixture of fear and fury. This wasn't just mean neighbors anymore. This was criminal. "You okay over there?" called Mr. Washington, my grandmother's neighbor, from across the street. He pointed to his doorbell camera. "Got that on video if you need it." I nodded gratefully, a small flicker of hope in the midst of the chaos, and hurried back inside. I needed Nana Rose's property papers to fight the HOA's spurious claims about the blue paint. Her study was neat, but packed with boxes labeled by year. In the corner sat a small filing cabinet, secured with a heavy padlock, something I'd never noticed before. The rain started pouring, a torrential downpour, as I searched frantically for the key. Lightning flashed through the window, illuminating Nana Rose's charm bracelet on her desk. A tiny golden gavel hung from it, a strange charm I'd always wondered about. On a hunch, a desperate spark of intuition, I tried it in the lock. It clicked open. Inside wasn't just property papers. The top folder, boldly labeled Pinnacle Development Group Evidence File, sent a jolt of adrenaline through me. My heart raced as I flipped through the contents. Photos of Aiden shaking hands with men in expensive suits, bank statements, secret recordings, maps of neighborhoods with properties circled in red, like targets in a war room. "What are you doing with my case files?" Nana Rose's voice, sharp and commanding, startled me. I must have accidentally hit speed dial on my phone. "Nana Rose, why do you have investigation files on Olivia's husband's company?" My voice came out as a shaky whisper, my mind reeling from the implications. Silence hung heavy on the line for a moment, a silence pregnant with unspoken secrets. "Sarah, I need you to listen very carefully," Nana Rose finally said, her voice firm, resolute, unlike anything I'd ever heard. "That file box contains evidence I've spent 2 years gathering. I'm not just a retired school teacher." Her voice, the voice I knew for cookie baking and garden loving, turned stern, revealing a hidden steel I'd never encountered. "I'm Senior Prosecutor Eleanor Curtis, White Collar Crime Division. The hip surgery story, it's my cover while I build this case." I sank into her chair, stunned, my world tilting on its axis. "The Pinnacle Company, they're targeting homes here across 3 counties," she continued, her voice low and urgent. "They force out elderly residents using trumped-up HOA violations, then buy the properties cheap. Aiden handles the legal side. Olivia scouts vulnerable targets." Her voice lowered further, a chilling whisper. "They've done this to 26 senior citizens already. I moved here undercover when we noticed the pattern." I stared at the photos spread across the desk, the faces of the victims, their homes marked for demolition. "That's why they're after your cottage," I whispered, the pieces falling into place with sickening clarity. "They have no idea who I am, but they want my property for its lake access. I've been gathering evidence, building a case." A thunderous crash from downstairs cut her off. My blood turned to ice. I peered through the blinds, my heart hammering against my ribs, to see Olivia's SUV speeding away. Downstairs, I found the living room window completely shattered, rain pouring in over broken glass, a scene of deliberate, malicious destruction. "Sarah, what happened?" Nana Rose's voice, filled with alarm, called from the phone. I must have dropped it on the desk as I ran back upstairs. I noticed a folder missing from the box, the main evidence file, the core of Nana Rose's investigation. My stomach dropped. "Someone broke in. I think they took your case file," I gasped. "Check the blue book on the third shelf," Nana Rose said, her voice surprisingly calm, controlled. I pulled down an old, unassuming cookbook to find it hollowed out, containing a USB drive and backup files. "Always keep copies," Nana Rose said, a hint of grim satisfaction in her voice. "Now, listen to me, Sarah. You're in danger. They've seen you there, and they'll assume you know everything." A car door slammed outside. Through the window, I spotted Aidan, walking purposefully toward the cottage, phone to his ear. Behind him, Olivia's SUV idled at the curb, a silent, menacing presence. "They're here," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Back door? Now," Nana Rose commanded, her voice sharp and urgent. "Take the files to Maya at 156 Maple Street. She's been helping me build the case." The doorbell rang, followed by aggressive, insistent knocking. "Sarah, open up. We need to discuss the additional violations on your grandmother's property." Aidan's voice boomed through the door, filled with a barely contained rage. I grabbed the remaining files and the USB drive, shoving them into my backpack. The knocking grew louder, more frantic. "One more thing," Nana Rose said urgently. "In my bedroom closet, behind the shoe rack." The front door splintered open with a crash, the sound echoing through the house. Heavy footsteps entered the cottage. "I have to go," I whispered, ending the call. The back door was just across the hallway. If I moved quietly enough, I might make it out. I crept from the study, backpack clutched tight against my chest, my every sense on high alert. "Check upstairs," I heard Aidan say, his voice filled with cold fury. "Find those documents." Footsteps started up the stairs, heavy and determined. I slipped toward the back door, my hand reaching for the knob, my escape so close. "Going somewhere?" Olivia's voice, dripping with icy sarcasm, froze me in place. She was blocking my exit, a smug, triumphant smile on her face that didn't reach her cold, calculating eyes. "Your grandmother asked me to water her plants while she's away," I lied, trying to look innocent despite the backpack clutched against my chest, a clear giveaway. Olivia's eyes narrowed, assessing me, her gaze lingering on the backpack. "Then you won't mind if we check what's in that bag," she said, reaching for it, her smile turning predatory. Aidan shouted from above that he had found the other files. My heart pounded against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat. I needed a distraction, fast. I pretended to stumble, knocking over a vase, which crashed to the floor in a shower of ceramic shards. While Olivia jumped back, startled by the shattering glass, I bolted past her, shoving the screen door open and sprinting across the wet grass, my escape route finally clear. "Stop her!" Olivia screamed behind me, her voice filled with rage. Rain soaked me as I ran between houses, mud splashing up my legs, the adrenaline coursing through my veins. I had no idea where 156 Maple Street was, but I needed to get away first. Aidan's angry shouts faded behind me as I cut through a neighbor's yard and ducked behind a garden shed, catching my breath, my lungs burning. I pulled out my phone to search for Maya's address. The map showed Maple Street just 2 blocks over. As I prepared to run again, a text buzzed from an unknown number. "Behind you? Don't scream. I'm a friend." I whirled around, my heart leaping into my throat, to find an elderly woman with steel-gray hair holding an umbrella. "Maya?" I asked, my voice a shaky whisper. "Maya," she confirmed quietly. "Eleanor texted me. Come quickly." She led me through a series of backyard shortcuts, a hidden network known only to the long-time residents, to a small, yellow house with a beautiful, well-tended garden. Once inside, Maya locked 3 separate deadbolts, a clear indication of the danger we were in. "Welcome to Resistance Headquarters," she said, gesturing to a dining room where 3 other seniors sat around a table covered with maps, documents, and legal pads, a makeshift war room hidden in plain sight. A tall man with distinguished white hair stood. "Judge Marcus Johnson, retired," he introduced himself. "Eleanor told us. You have the files?" I nodded, pulling out the USB drive and the remaining papers, my hands still trembling. "Perfect," said a woman with reading glasses perched on her nose and a notebook in her lap. "Debbie Patel, editor of the Pinarest Gazette. I've been tracking property transfers for months." The fourth person, a man with a laptop open in front of him, nodded. "Tyler Washington, those cameras on my house aren't just for show." Maya made me hot chocolate, a small comfort in the midst of the storm, as they explained how Pinnacle Development's scheme worked. They targeted senior communities, infiltrated the HOA board, then created impossible rules and fabricated violations until homeowners gave up and sold their properties for pennies on the dollar. "Your grandmother moved here intentionally," Debbie explained, her voice filled with admiration. After the third county showed the same disturbing pattern, she decided to gather evidence from the inside, a true undercover operation. Tyler turned his laptop to show me security footage of Aidan and Olivia placing the Caltrops in Nana Rose's driveway, then later breaking the windows, irrefutable evidence of their criminal actions. "We have everything," Marcus said, his voice grave but determined. "But we need your grandmother's case files to connect all the dots legally to make the charges stick." I pulled the USB drive from my pocket. "Everything's here, but they know I have it now. They'll come after me." Maya smiled, a knowing, almost mischievous glint in her eyes. "That's exactly what we want." The 4 seniors revealed their plan, a carefully orchestrated counterattack. Each had been gathering different pieces of evidence for months. Judge Marcus had court connections. Debbie could publish the story, exposing the scandal to the world. Tyler had irrefutable surveillance footage. Maya knew every resident who had been affected. "But we need one more thing," Debbie said, unrolling a property map of Pinarest Village. Red X's marked homes that had been pressured into selling. Blue circles showed homes currently being targeted. In the center, a large plot of land encompassed all the properties Pinnacle had acquired, their ultimate prize. "This is their real goal," Marcus explained, pointing to a document showing plans for a luxurious, sprawling resort. "They need just 4 more properties, including your grandmother's cottage, to complete their master plan." "Tomorrow night is the emergency HOA meeting," Maya said, her voice grim. "They're planning to vote on foreclosures for delinquent properties." Tyler typed rapidly on his laptop. "According to their emails, which they really should have encrypted better," he added with a wry grin, "they plan to use the meeting to claim legal authority to force sales. "How do you have their emails?" I asked, amazed. "I was an IT security specialist before retiring," Tyler grinned, "and Aidan uses the same password for everything, his dog's name plus his birth year, amateur." A plan formed as we talked, a daring, high-stakes gamble. We would attend the meeting, bring the affected residents, and expose everything. But we needed Nana Rose there to make the legal case stick, to deliver the final blow. "I'll call her," I said, reaching for my phone. "No phones," Maya interrupted, her voice firm. "They could be tracking you. Use my landline." As I dialed, Debbie handed me a newspaper article she'd drafted. The headline blared, "State Prosecutor uncovers massive housing fraud ring in Pinarest Village." My eyes widened as I read, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and excitement. You can't publish this yet, I warned. Of course not, Debbie winked. It's for after tomorrow's meeting. Nana Rose answered on the third ring. When I explained our plan, she was silent for a moment, a silence that stretched on, filled with unspoken calculations. It's too soon, she finally said, her voice firm. We need more evidence connecting Robert Thompson directly. We have it, Tyler called out, turning his screen to show security footage of Michael meeting with Aidan behind the community center, exchanging documents, the smoking gun. Send that to my secure email, Nana Rose said, her voice taking on a new urgency, and tell Maya to activate Protocol Checkmate. Maya's eyes lit up. She's ready to move, finally. After hanging up, Maya explained that Protocol Checkmate meant Nana Rose would arrive with her team from the Attorney General's office. Everything had to be perfectly timed, a synchronized strike. As we finalized the details, the lights suddenly went out. Through the window, I spotted Olivia's SUV slowly cruising past Maya's house, its headlights casting eerie shadows. They're looking for you, Marcus said quietly. Tyler, show our young friend the basement. Tyler led me downstairs to a small but comfortable room. Welcome to our safe house, he smiled. We've helped 3 other residents hide here when things got rough. As I settled in, trying to process everything, Maya handed me a legal pad. Write down everything you've seen since arriving. Times, dates, exact words used. We need your testimony to be precise. I started writing, but paused when I heard a noise upstairs. Maya came down minutes later, her face pale. They just posted an update to the HOA newsletter. The meeting has been moved up to tomorrow morning instead of evening. Marcus frowned, his brow furrowed with concern. They're trying to rush this through before Eleanor can get here. Can we delay them? Debbie's smile turned mischievous. Leave that to me. I have press credentials and a lot of very detailed questions that will need answering before any vote can happen. As the others went upstairs to adjust our plan, I found a photograph that had fallen from one of the files. It showed Olivia and Aidan standing next to a prison. The caption read, Thompson visits former HOA President James Willis, convicted in similar scheme, 2022. This wasn't their first time. They'd done this before, and someone had gone to prison for it. The stakes were even higher than I'd thought. I heard cars pulling up outside. Peering through the small basement window, I saw Aidan knocking on Maya's front door, flanked by 2 men I didn't recognize. One wore a security uniform, with the Pinarest Village logo. Miss Ramirez? Aidan's voice carried through the window, smooth and falsely polite. We're conducting a wellness check on all elderly residents tonight. May we come in? At 11 p.m.? Maya responded incredulously, her voice sharp and unwavering. I don't think so. I sank back against the wall, my heart racing. This wasn't just about property anymore. With what we knew, we were all in danger. Upstairs, I heard Maya firmly shutting the door. Moments later, Tyler appeared at the basement stairs. Pack up, he whispered. They're watching the house. We need to move everyone before morning. As I gathered the files, a text buzzed on the burner phone Maya had given me. It was from Nana Rose. Don't go to the meeting. This is a trap. They know who I am. My hands shook as I watched Olivia and Aidan through Maya's kitchen window. They were stuffing official-looking papers into mailboxes, perfect smiles plastered on their faces. The picture of deceptive normalcy. They're delivering foreclosure notices, Maya whispered, her voice tight with anger. Special meeting tomorrow night to vote on problem properties. My phone buzzed again. Nana Rose. Her voice was stronger than I'd heard in weeks, filled with a steely determination. I'm coming home now, she said. We're setting a trap, I gasped. But your recovery? Some things matter more than my hip, she cut in, her voice unwavering. I've got a team from the Attorney General's office ready. We need those 2 to reveal their whole plan, on record, in front of witnesses. Judge Marcus leaned forward, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Your grandmother has been building this case for months. Pinnacle Development has forced out elderly homeowners in 5 communities already. We need to play dumb, he instructed, his voice low and conspiratorial. Debbie, her reporter's notebook filled with dates, names, and incriminating details, advised, let them think they're winning. Hours later, I helped Nana Rose unpack, in secret, at Judge Marcus's house. She looked smaller than I remembered, more frail, but her eyes flashed with fierce determination as she spread files across his dining table. Their mistake was targeting me, she said, showing me photos of Aiden meeting Robert Thompson outside his law office, the evidence mounting. They didn't know I was already investigating Pinnacle when I bought here. The doorbell rang. Tyler rushed in, holding a tiny device. Got it? Audio recorder disguised as a hearing aid, he said, handing it to Nana Rose. Just press the earpiece once to start recording. We need them to admit everything, publicly. Nana Rose explained, the HOA meeting is our chance. Their greed will be their undoing. That night, sleep was impossible. What if Olivia and Aiden discovered our plan? What if Nana Rose wasn't strong enough yet? Outside my window, I spotted a car idling across the street. Someone was watching the cottage. A constant, ominous presence. The next day crawled by. Agonizingly slow. I paced Nana Rose's living room, rehearsing what to say at the meeting, my nerves frayed. At 6:30 p.m., Judge Marcus arrived to drive us to the community center. Remember, he cautioned, his voice low and serious, act surprised and upset when they announce the foreclosures. We need their full confession, their arrogance on full display. Nana Rose checked her hearing aid and straightened her blouse. For a moment, I saw the prosecutor she'd been all these years, sharp, focused, unstoppable, a woman transformed. The community center buzzed with nervous chatter when we arrived. Olivia's smile faltered, her carefully constructed composure cracking when she spotted Nana Rose leaning on my arm. Aiden nearly dropped his gavel, his surprise evident. Eleanor, what a surprise, Olivia stammered, her voice betraying her unease. We weren't expecting you until next month. I recovered faster than expected, Nana Rose replied sweetly, her voice laced with a subtle irony. Couldn't miss an emergency meeting about my own property. Aiden quickly composed himself, regaining his composure. Please, take a seat. We're about to begin. From across the room, I spotted Maya, Debbie, and 5 other neighbors I hadn't met. All older residents, all looking worried, their faces etched with concern. This wasn't just about Nana Rose's cottage anymore. This was about an entire community under siege. Aiden rapped his gavel, bringing the room to a semblance of order. First item, vote on foreclosure proceedings for 7 properties with outstanding violations and unpaid special assessments. My heart pounded as he projected a spreadsheet onto the screen, showing the targeted properties. Nana Rose's cottage was listed first, followed by Maya's house, and 5 others, a blatant hit list. As you can see, Aiden continued smugly, his voice dripping with condescension, these properties have failed to comply with our community standards. The board recommends immediate foreclosure proceedings. Olivia stood, clipboard clutched to her chest like a shield. Pinnacle Development has generously offered to purchase these distressed properties at 60% of market value, saving these unfortunate homeowners from further embarrassment. A murmur rippled through the room, a wave of unease and disbelief. I glanced at Nana Rose, who nodded slightly, a barely perceptible signal. It was time. I shot to my feet, my voice trembling with a mixture of anger and fear. That's robbery. My grandmother's property has no legitimate violations. Aiden's face hardened, his smile vanishing. Young lady, your grandmother's cottage violates 6 different bylaws, and she's 3 months behind on special assessments. Special assessments you invented last month? I countered, my voice rising in defiance. Olivia stepped forward, her voice sharp and accusatory. The board's decision is final. These properties damage our community's value. Robert has investors waiting to build modern homes that will boost everyone's property values. So that's what this is about, Nana Rose said, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife, clear and strong. Forcing out long-term residents for your husband's development company. Aidan slammed his gavel, his control slipping. That's enough. Security, please remove Ms. Curtis and her granddaughter. 2 men moved toward us, but froze when the back door swung open. 4 people in suits entered, their badges prominently displayed, their presence radiating authority. Actually, Nana Rose said, standing straighter now, her voice resonating with power, I believe this meeting should continue. My colleagues from the Attorney General's office are very interested in hearing about these special assessments and your connection to Pinnacle Development. Olivia's face, drained of all color, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. Aidan lunged for his laptop, but Tyler was faster, grabbing it before he could reach it. I have some interesting footage everyone should see, Tyler announced, connecting the computer to the projector. The screen flickered to life, showing Aidan and Olivia clear as day, placing the spikes in Nana Rose's driveway, then later meeting with Michael, exchanging an envelope, incontrovertible evidence of their conspiracy. This meeting is over, Aidan shouted, making a desperate break for the side door. 2 officers blocked his path, their movements swift and efficient. Aidan, Olivia, one said formally, we have some questions about your real estate practices across 3 counties. Nana Rose stood, no longer leaning on me or her cane, her posture radiating strength and authority. And I have a warrant to search the HOA financial records and your personal communications with Pinnacle Development, she declared, her voice ringing with triumph. She turned to the stunned room, her gaze sweeping across the faces of her neighbors. I apologize for the deception, neighbors. I'm not just Eleanor Curtis, retiree. I'm Senior Prosecutor Eleanor Curtis, White Collar Crime Division. Olivia collapsed into a chair, her mouth opening and closing like a fish, utterly speechless. Aidan's face contorted with rage, his carefully crafted world collapsing around him. You'll never prove anything, he spat, his voice filled with desperation. Nana Rose smiled, removing her hearing aid and holding it up for everyone to see. I believe I just did. The room erupted in gasps, a collective intake of breath, as state police officers filed in, the culmination of months of meticulous planning and unwavering courage. Behind my grandmother, Eleanor Curtis stood tall, despite her cane, her eyes locked on Aidan's panicked face. It was over. This isn't what it looks like, Aidan stammered, backing away from the projector, still showing him placing the tire-puncturing spikes in Nana Rose's driveway. A damning image. Save it for court, the lead officer said, reading Aidan his rights, while another approached Olivia, whose face had drained of all color, her composure shattered. I couldn't help smiling, a wave of relief and triumph washing over me. Neighbors began whispering, connecting all the dots, the pieces of the puzzle finally falling into place. Maya squeezed my hand, tears in her eyes. Your grandmother, she was building this case for all of us, she whispered, her voice filled with gratitude. Outside, news vans were already pulling up, their cameras flashing. Nana Rose's team, from the Attorney General's office, had tipped off reporters about the sting operation, ensuring the story would reach the widest possible audience. Debbie, from the local paper, winked at me as she snapped photos, her reporter's instincts kicking into high gear. 3 weeks later, Nana Rose's blue cottage looked better than ever. The roses climbed freely, without fear of arbitrary violation notices. Neighbors dropped by with casseroles and thank you cards, expressing their gratitude and relief. The community was healing, rebuilding, stronger than before. News had spread about how close Pinarest Village had come to being completely devoured by Pinnacle Development's greed. The DA is offering Aidan and Olivia a deal if they testify against Robert Thompson, Nana Rose told me, over lemonade on her porch swing, the gentle breeze rustling the leaves of the trees. But they'd still serve time. For property damage, fraud, conspiracy, Judge Marcus stopped by with papers for Nana Rose to sign. The new HOA bylaws are ready for review, he said proudly. No more loopholes for developers to exploit. We've learned our lesson. What surprised me most was how quickly the community rallied. Maya was elected the new HOA president, her leadership a testament to her resilience. Tyler installed a free security system for every elderly resident, a symbol of their newfound vigilance. Even Olivia's teenage son came by to apologize, offering to mow Nana Rose's lawn all summer, a small gesture of redemption. You know, Nana Rose said, watching children playing across the street, where a for sale sign stood in front of the Thompsons' now empty house, a stark reminder of their downfall. I was planning to retire next month, but I think I'll stay on a bit longer. There are HOAs like this all across the state that need cleaning up. I smiled, a new sense of purpose filling me. Need a research assistant? I'm thinking of changing my major to law. This story highlights the importance of community vigilance, standing up for what's right, and the power of seemingly ordinary individuals to make an extraordinary difference. It underscores that age is not a barrier to justice, and that even in the face of powerful, corrupt forces, perseverance and collaboration can prevail. It also reminds us to never underestimate the quiet strength that can reside in our neighbors, and the importance of looking beyond surface appearances. What did you think of Nana Rose's undercover operation? Have you ever experienced similar issues with an HOA or other powerful organization? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of courage, resilience, and justice.